Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody. As always, I'm Andrew here with my co-host, Mr. Brad McGowan, founder and
Hey, man.
designer of Endless Blading. Great to be here, Brad.
Merry Christmas. Good to see you.
Merry Christmas to everybody. Thanks to everybody for tuning in day after Christmas. Hope everybody had a great holiday, safe travels, all that good stuff. I don't want to waste any time here, Brad. We've got some stellar people lined up, I feel like, behind the digital curtain here that I just can't wait to bring on the show.
Do
So
it.
should we go ahead and do it? All right, let's do it. So I am super stoked to be here with the UFS Whiz Kids. We've got Wayne, we've got Andrew Yu, we've got Billy Arlu. We're going to put them on the top here as the stars of our show. Billy, Andrew, Wayne, you guys want to say hey to the crowd? We've already got some love pouring in from the chat.
Hello, everyone.
Good evening, y'all. Good to see you.
Hey, y'all. Good morning from Seoul, South Korea.
Calling all the way from across the other side of the world.
He's in the future. Pretty much.
And just want to say, first and foremost, thanks guys for being on. It's so great to have you, and I know you've been integral to the testing of today's kind of core focus, the endless. Well, I shouldn't even steal your thunder, Brad. This is your baby. I think you should take it away from here. What are we talking about today?
Yeah, so today we're here to talk about the Endless 100 UFS frames. We're going to be talking about our testing experience over the last, I guess, 4 months, I guess. Yeah, I guess it's been a little over 4 months. We've all been testing these frames. And I think we can just come right out of the gate here. And actually, this product is going to end up being called the Endless 100 Ultra. Excuse me. It's going to be the Endless 100 Ultra frame. We'll get more into that. But yeah, so I'd like to just to like set the stage for what we're going to talk about. We're going to go through kind of what our design problem is, like why we're even talking about this. Why are we all here? What was it, the thing that we were trying to design and create? And excuse me.
Those holidays,
And
those holiday cooties, man.
No, I was eating some crackers right before we went on, and I just like have like cracker dust in my throat. So anyway, we're gonna talk about obviously we're gonna kind of come up with our design problem, our mission statement, and then talk about all the criteria that goes into that. So Billy, why don't you tell us, maybe you and Andrew and Wayne too, why the heck are we even doing this? Why are we here?
Why are we here? Well, I guess from my perspective, the desire to skate big wheel rockered frames, but not necessarily use a 165 boot, and to get the benefits of Endless technology, basically, and the design principles of Endless wasn't possible on UFS. I had the ARC frame, and Andrew and I skated that extensively, along with many other people, all of the people on the call, basically. But I was like, what if there was this big wheel version and it was super powerful? That's where my mind went with it. Andrew, what about you?
That's a good way to put it. I mean, to sort of summarize it quickly, it's like, what if we could arcify 4x100? Because we loved, there's something about the push on the arcs in particular that just felt so good. And it's like, well, can we do that for this too?
Okay, well, let me ask the obvious question here. Like, didn't you guys already have 4x100 frames that you liked?
Yeah.
Yep.
So tell everybody what was wrong. Like, what was wrong with it? What weren't you getting from that experience that made you say, I need something better?
Well, I guess for me, I really like the wheelbase of 4x100. Like, in terms of geometry with my foot, it just kind of pokes out the right amount. It's the right height. It all kind of felt like the right geometry. But I personally just wanted something super lightweight and that would have, I guess, a level of kind of precision that a lot of the Endless products have, from the standpoint of how it feels when you skate it, but also just the product itself. Like, just how does it feel in the hand and everything like that. So yeah, that's what I was kind of looking for, was just that combination of like light and stiff, but still a big big wheel that carries a lot of speed.
I wasn't looking for a new 4x100 until we started skating the arcs. You know, I've had both 165 and UFS 4x100s that I love dearly. I love it's my favorite wheel setup probably. But it was when we got that little extra something out of the arc, just the difference between it and the other 5 wheels that I had tried, made me think, well, am I missing something here? Is there something more that we could get? And
how would you define that thing that was missing?
Yeah, it was. I in retrospect, I mean, I can define that in retrospect, much in the same way that I could figure that out like once we had the arcs, and I could literally A/B test them versus like another one of these frames. And it was that efficiency of stride. It was the feedback that I was getting underfoot, that kind of a thing. Having that really makes a difference.
What about you, Wayne?
Yeah, I would say that I don't have as extensive an experience with 100 frames from other brands. Obviously had the 165 version of the endless frames for a while. Always appreciated how solid the wheels and the entire frame felt. And in general, the reason I like the hundreds is because it just with that extra ride height, it gives you the ability to carve a bit harder without scraping your boots on the ground. Like that, I think is the main advantage over something like the arcs. And so to have a set of frames that allow you to really dig deep while also being kind of light enough that you're kind of not sucking out the fun of it after just the 30 minutes or an hour or so. I think like that was the big objective here for me. And I don't want to spoil the outcomes, but that's where I was coming from.
Would you guys say that we basically were trying to design a UFS big wheel frame for like longer, like higher speed flows and higher speed wizard skating? Would that be fair to say that was kind of like the goal?
Yeah, like urban flow skating, I guess, in my mind. Like the arc frame and a lot of the 5 wheel frames are for, I mean, I guess lower speed, more technical, maybe more artistic skating. And then something in the 100 realm, you just cover so much more distance and you eat up pavement in a way that's different. So there's this ability to kind of like dance through the streets in a way that a 76 mil wheel is just going to be more effort to achieve. So if you can be flowing through streets and sidewalks and paths and all this and kind of dancing the whole way, at least the way I like to think of it. And I learned this all from studying Brock Lee Skates. Shout out there. Just continual propulsion through edge work and not necessarily having to stride. But then when you want to stride, like you could just sprint and you're not going to get super tired. So yeah, just something about like wanting something that was just like rock solid, crispy, that would just do exactly what you tell it at speed.
I've never heard anybody describe Brock's skating style, I think, more eloquently than that, Billy.
It's like the first skater I saw when I first got back into it. I was like, this is, I don't ever want to push. I just want to dance.
Yeah. We had, Andrew and I had the opportunity to skate with Brock a couple times. Once, twice, I forget.
Once or twice, I think.
Yeah. And he's a very powerful skater. Yeah. He's always just explosive acceleration on every
forward, backwards, sideways.
Yeah. Every
edge,
everything.
Yeah.
Ever.
So sure.
Anyway.
I'd love to hear. Go ahead, Brad.
Can I just add one thing?
Yeah.
So from my perspective, as somebody that skates, I think I skate 4x100 a lot. It's one of my favorite setups. I mean, I have skated it a bunch on UFS in the past and also extensively on 165. For me, like I'm an old man blader, so it's like in order for me to keep up, like I need as much cruise as I can get. So like a frame that's efficient, translates my input power to output power, is something that I'm looking for. Obviously, one of the complaints I had about other UFS 4x100 frames I've skated in the past is that pretty darn heavy. And like, if you're just trying to just, push over a long distance, get in some miles, like it kind of wears you down. And so there's I'd always envisioned this 4x100 experience that felt a little more effortless and had a lot more rocket propulsion behind it. And so yeah, so for my own personal, wants, that's kind of what I was looking for. So I would say, like, if I can define what I think so obviously we're saying that this is like a big wheel flow frame or big wheel wizard skating frame. I think something we should get to is this frame was going to be specifically designed for a certain kind of boot. And so we can talk about that in a sec. But I would say the main criteria for this frame would be, in my mind, that had to be fast. It had to be lightweight. It had to be stiff and rigid, which therefore makes it responsive. And it had to very efficiently translate input into output. And in the process, give you good instantaneous feedback. And so, and it had to do all those things better than any other frame. Like in my head, I think, with a lot of the things I design, there's some brands making quality products on the market. And I've always felt the reason why I've never done a 4x100 UFS frame, Endless basically started selling frames in the beginning of 2020. It's almost 2025. We're coming up on the 5-year anniversary. It's like, why have I never made a 4x100 UFS frame in 5 years? And it's because I was like, well, if I'm going to do this, it has to be better than existing things on the market. Like I have no interest in just making a different shape, a prettier shape, a different colored shape. Like it needs to be like objectively better. Like the engineering has to be more refined. It has to give you appreciable results. And so obviously we designed a lot of frames in the last 5 years. So we're able to kind of bring all that, all those lessons learned and all that know-how from the other designs and kind of put it into this new design. So that was kind of where I was coming from, like mentally. I was just like, what's the point of doing this if we're not going to be better than everything else? And I think, we don't need to name names, but there's probably one frame that everybody thinks of as like the gold standard when it comes to 4x100 UFS. And it's like, if we can't engineer something that performs better than that, then it's just, I've got better things to do with my life. So, but spoiler alert, I think we've succeeded. So, Andrew, what were you going to say?
No, it was a separate story, but I like you kind of rehashing this. I distinctly remember, story time when we first met and started skating. There was that want to do 4x100 UFS. I think when we released the UFS line, you're like, I'm not sure. And I think, Andrew, you mentioned earlier too, right? The arc, I think, was really the turning point where I think you found some of that special sauce that really unlocked, I think, some of that, foot to frame translation. And with the 100 frames, especially, right? I skate 4x100 on the Trinity mount. That's a tall frame, right? It's got a lot more flex. The wheels have a lot more flex to it.
Well, it's tall because of 4x100, but I mean, it's lower than 165.
Sure, right, but it's just inherently a much more tall frame than say your standard 4x80, and so you need that extra kind of foot to boot connection. So yeah, I'm happy that this finally came about due to the arc stuff. I guess this gets to Jonah Prescott's question. I'm just going to throw up here for everybody to see, and me as a non-UFS skater to the UFS whiz kids that we have here, I think, in this awesome show today. What's the sell here for 4x100 on UFS? I guess, why is this, different than the 4x100 experience that Brad has kind of brought to us already in the 165 4x100? If you guys, just whoever wants to go, can kind of speak to, why is UFS kind of special here, and why is 4x100 on that setup, unique compared to our other 4x100 setups?
Do one of you guys want to take it? Or do you want me to speak to this from a technical perspective first?
I want to hear Andrew Yu's perspective? Because you've skated
boy.
both 165 and UFS, right?
Oh man,
Yeah.
I was trying to prepare an answer quickly while you're talking about this.
You want me to give you guys
Sure, you can.
the short answer hint, and you can
The short
elaborate on
technical
it?
answer.
Yeah.
No,
I mean,
no
the
hints,
short
no hints.
answer is that it's just lower on UFS.
Yeah.
Like UFS is kind of ideal for four-wheel setups, and so Trinity might be equivalent to UFS in terms of ride height, but it's just lower. And so, why don't you?
Yeah, what does that
elaborate?
translate to in feel, Andrew? Right, because we can give all
Right,
the technical ride heights 2 millimeter lower.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I mean, so I spent like all of 2021 on the endless 100s on an FR1 with the Danny Beer Intuition in there, which in retrospect was a little bit of a tight fit, but at the time I loved it. It's still a great setup. I spent all of that year on that, and just so happened to get a Seba SX gutted in essentially my size on eBay for like under $100. Thank you to whoever sold me that.
Good find.
Yeah. And so through another series of serendipitous events, the frame that's up there, I got one of those too, and I got to try 4x100 on the NR100, which I've skated for years now at this point. So 2022 was sort of the NR100 year, 2023 and part of 24. So I've had a lot of experience on both of these frames at this point, and I would say certainly like at the point where I transitioned from one to the other, I didn't feel a lot of difference between the two of them in terms of like the set of tricks I had available to me in terms of Wizard or just like riding around. They felt pretty similar to me, but over time, I would say the thing that I appreciate first of all is the shape of the SX boot. So I would say it's UFS at 165. It's actually more about the boot that you're using. You got to have a boot that fits your foot.
So this is the boot we're talking about.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and that fits me perfectly. I love it. And so I'm looking for things that can go on that boot because of the shape of it. But performance-wise, really, I didn't find a whole lot of difference between the two. There is a little bit of a ride height difference, certainly. But it was, I guess the other thing about it is, and this plays into the ride height thing, is that the amount of ankle support that I could get out of the SX versus the FR1. I put a carbon cuff on my SX, so it's like a foot cast, as Brad I think you called it that in the past.
Yeah.
And I love it. It's perfect for the kind of skating that I want to do. So it's a good match. So that's why I like UFS.
Maybe we should.
Question, Brad.
Insightful stuff. Good one. Yeah.
Yeah, go.
Is there also a difference in the foot tilt between the UFS and the 165?
Yeah, so maybe we should talk about this kind of segues into boot, like why there's only really one boot we would recommend for this frame. So on a 165 frame, let me grab one here. Here's an arc. This is an arc CS frame. Obviously, it's got a race
Billy's
heel.
got a great one there. Look at that. Look at that
Wow.
battle damage.
Yeah. Whereas on on a UFS frame, you have a coplanar mount. You might see other brands where this is just straight across.
Right.
It's a flat mount on UFS. So some UFS frames have a tilt at the top. So like the actual boot is kind of sitting, is sitting at an angle to the, I'll exaggerate it, but basically it's like you're tipped forward.
Right.
And the reason that tilt is kind of there or is even required is because of this boot. This is a flat bottom boot, meaning there's no internal heel raise. Whereas if you take any 165 boot, I'm just gonna show this one because I've got it.
Technology.
What a gem.
Well, we're gonna come back to this one, or maybe this one will make it even more obvious. Here we go. Some retro for you. So the heel is obviously raised relative to the front of the foot. So it puts you in this posture where you're on the balls of your foot. And figure skating boots are like this. And this is a really good ergonomic skating posture. Your weight is balanced. If you're going to be doing tricks, it also puts you in a position where you have some leverage to push through your heel, as well as, if you think about our feet, it's harder to flex your foot up as it is to point it down, right? And so pushing through your heels, you kind of get more, you have more range of motion if you're already kind of on the ball of your foot.
So a flexed ankle can't flex anymore.
Yeah,
also.
yeah, exactly.
Like,
yeah,
if it's less flex, it has more range of motion, I think, from like as a starting position.
Yeah.
So,
and so, like Andrew was saying, for UFS, there's not really a lot of options for boots that are tall enough and supportive enough to allow you to ride a tall setup with 4x100. You know, once you get over 4x90, I really think the boot and the cuff support becomes really important. Obviously, so I have the Seba SX2, which is the one with the plastic. It's not carbon, but it's essentially the same as Andrew has. Intuition V2 liner. It's a foot cast. It just feels very rigid. And so the tilt is really to compensate for the fact that this boot, your foot just sits flat in the bottom of this boot, like as if you're walking barefoot around your house. And so, you know, you could get obviously an insole with some heel raise, or you could put like a shock absorber to get your heel up. But it actually feels pretty terrible to skate this boot on a flat frame. I think, Wayne, you have the CJ, and you have the Endless 90 UFS, which actually is a flat interface. And maybe you can comment on how that feels skating that flat boot on flat frame versus skating that boot on a tilted frame.
Yeah, I'm trying. I mean, it definitely. I don't know. I guess in my head, what I've often just assumed is that if the flatter it is, better it is to skate switch or skate fakie, or like go engage in turns or gazelles or lions, you know, in a fakie stance, just because it feels less directional in that way. But I mean, even with this tilt, you know, on the UFS 100, I felt no issue with it, right? And there's some adjustability in terms of, you know, adding an insole or adding a insert that raises the heel even more to your liking, or taking it out if you want a slightly flatter setup. So there's been some adjustment that I've done customization, and I currently skate without an insert, like a heel insert, so that it's as flat or as low to the ground as possible, and that's been working for me. With the UFS 90, I mean, I also don't mind it at all. Like, it also feels nice. Like, surely I'm not like pushing it as hard.
Do you notice? Do you notice though that it feels more like you're on your heels when you're on the flat interface frame?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, but I can't, like, it's hard for me to disambiguate. Is that because of the flatness, or is it because the ride height itself is lower and I just feel lower?
It's the flat frame. It's the flat frame. Yeah. And when I mean flat, I mean top of the frame is parallel to the ground as opposed to being tilted. And so, you know, obviously, you know, Wizard was the first brand to make a tilted UFS frame, and they, you know, they recognize this kind of fact as well, that it just doesn't feel as comfortable, like, or as ergonomic when you have that flat Seba boot on a tall flat frame. And so they kind of put a tilt on it. So I actually, when I was designing the arc frame, I mean, we spoke about this before, I actually took I took my boot, put my foot into it with no frame, and then stacked up business cards underneath. I had plastic business cards. I stacked them up underneath the heel of the boot to create a tilt. And I set it to where it felt comfortable to me. It kind of matched at the time, my 165 probably my Endless 100 on my FR1 with a Intuition and a Superfeet carbon, and I just matched that feeling, and I measured it, and then I did the math to figure out what that amount of angular tilt was, and that's what I put into the design. And so that's what we've carried forward to this Endless 100.
Just want to give a shout out here to Billy pulling multitask duty here. Yes, for our new skater listeners, so 165 does refer to the mounting distance between boots. Generally, there's kind of two main types of mounting. 165 and UFS, which is kind of more flat.
Yeah.
As Brad has shown a couple.
So this
times.
would be between this forward mount and this rear slot. That would be 165 millimeters. And then on UFS,
it's
it's
180.
it's 167.
67
between the two mounting points, and it's symmetric about the center of the skate as opposed to 165, which is kind of asymmetric.
Right. So you set the vision, Brad, right? What this UFS frame was trying to do, what it was trying to accomplish. How do we do, guys? What's the verdict? I guess maybe for our superstars here, what was the testing like? Kind of what did you guys notice as you were first kind of trying these? Was there
what were you testing for?
Yeah, what were you testing for? Yeah, great stuff here. Give us the behind the scenes view to these testing processes that go on before these things launch.
Oh, our acceptance criteria for the experiment here.
Yeah,
right.
Spoken like a true scientist.
Oh man.
Wait, can I just
Can I just
make
talk more about the design
statement
problem
here
too? Yeah.
I want to just say that the reason that I chose you three specifically to help test this product or future product or potential future product even was because, well, first of all, I've known you guys a few years now and you've become friends, but I also know that you're not gonna sugarcoat stuff. You're gonna, if something sucks, you're gonna tell me. If it's not like meeting the high bar that this product needs to meet, like you're gonna let me know. And like, yeah, like I'm not just, I should also say, none of you got paid. None of you are, there's no deals. There's no, like, I don't, like, why did you want to do this?
Yeah, we're not under contract or oath.
There's no contract. Yeah.
The blood oath. No, there is no such thing. That is only with blading, direct relationship with blading is the blood oath, right?
That's right. That's right.
You've got to make your payments to the blade gods, right? Every once in a while. Non-denominational rollerblader over here. I guess the main acceptance criteria in my mind was this thing should feel super solid. It should feel super predictable. And I want to like have no translation between what I'm telling the frame and what it does. I want it to do what I ask it to do. Is how I thought of it. Like just, like no delay, no flex, none of that. Like just predictability.
Have you had other experiences where you tell frames what you want it to do and it doesn't do what you want it to do? Like, can you elaborate on like what's the experience of not getting that?
Oh, I guess like I will repeat tricks a lot until I land them correctly. And when I feel like I'm doing the same thing each time, but it's like slipping out at different points, or I'm like losing, like I guess I think about rocker frames as having like a parabolic edge, like on a ski, like making like a carved trajectory. And when you think you know what that trajectory is, but it lets go of it or smears a little bit and like kind of changes direction when you aren't expecting it to, like 4-wheel frames especially like have a very pronounced direction they want to go when you tilt them. 5-wheel frames are a lot more variable. So like when you are on that edge and you're telling it to do stuff and it's like disobeying you, I guess, or doing something different than what you asked, like it can just be frustrating. So that was, and maybe this is more of a reflection on what I realized we did make, but I'm now posing it as acceptance criteria. It's like, I want this frame to do what I ask it to, like, and not like dance around underneath me or slip out when I'm doing like a mega, chain of lions or something crazy like that. So, okay. That was a long talk. What were you guys testing for when you were hopping on this thing for the first time?
Andrew, you want to go next?
Go for it.
Oh, myself? I guess I would broaden out slightly. So there's obviously the feel of the frames, but I think for me, I was also thinking about the function of how I would want to use these frames. So on one hand, it's like, for me, it was like, can I wizard on these, right? Like, can I do wizard skating on these 100 4x100 frames, and bring a different type of style into it, right? Maybe less toe and heel tricks and more kind of swivelly sliding, kind of more heavy-handed, fast-paced flow skate moves. And then on the other hand, I just also want to recognize, like, I mean, there's this, my prior understanding was that 4x100s are just one of the most versatile frames, not only in terms of having that rocker and being able to do those kind of flowy tricks, but also being an urban cruiser, right? So this would be something that I would want to travel with, right? To a place like New York or elsewhere, like another city, where I would want to meet up with friends and kind of skate the urban, streets, but also be able to like settle down and find my own little, quiet spot and do kind of wizard skating practice. So can it also achieve both of those kind of things at once as a versatile frame, do-it-all frame? And as someone who is coming from, who's skating the arc frames a lot prior to this testing, right? I mean, for me, the criterion was like, can it do, did it noticeably change my style of skating from the arc frames and kind of like this post kind of 5-wheel buzz, and also can I kind of ride around the city and have a whole lot of fun? So those are my criteria.
Yeah, I love that feeling you described, Wayne, that the anti-slug is what I call it. There are certain, I don't know, frames or setups that I've skated before where it's just a slog, right? You're skating for 5 miles and you're like, it just feels like you're putting in all this effort and you're not getting it back. So I think, I haven't personally skated the UFS hundreds, but in the arc frames, I felt that where it feels like what you're putting in is what you're getting out. And that's in some of the new frames too. All right, Andrew, you've had enough time. What were you looking for? What was your selection criteria?
So I will say that my initial scope of acceptance is pretty simple. I think innovation takes a lot of forms, and reducing weight constitutes an innovation. If you can give me something that's as good as what I was skating and make it lighter, you've already won. So I started with
why do you want lighter? Yeah, why do you want lighter though?
I'm old. I don't need the weight. You could save me, 50, 100 grams of skate. That's awesome. And over time and with age, I could start to feel that it's real. It's real. And so just that was what I started with. So that was a pretty easy acceptance criteria. I have a scale. I can measure these things and I can see how I skate. So it was really kind of a vibe check, honestly, to start with. And I posted the first shots, like the first time I put, those wheels to the ground, cropped out the frames and everything. But, I had a big smile on my face immediately. The first thing I did, it just worked. And I was like, okay, yeah, vibe check passed already. And then from there, it was just about testing them out and like just kind of like probing them for weaknesses. I'm not as good at that as say Billy is, and I hope we get to see some of his clips later where he is just like attacking the ground at like, I don't know, like some crazy angle. But I can put them through their paces and I can feel the differences relative to other things. And so I start to scrutinize it. But first thing was just a vibe check. And did you make it lighter? Yes and yes. So yeah.
So for me, how do I want to say this? So when I first skated these things, my criteria, I always have this like, does it pass the sniff test? It's usually like, does anything jump out at me as annoying? Like, am I actually noticing anything specific about the skating experience that's negative or frustrating? Or am I just skating in a way where my body moves in a natural way? And so for me, these frames are going to be less about a tool that I use to do wizard skating, but more about giving me a really versatile, kind of like what Wayne was saying about an urban skating. I want a versatile 4x100 experience. Like the Endless 100 on the 165 on like an FR1 and Intuition is a very light setup. But it's tall because it's 165. So the appeal to me of this design was potentially that it was going to give me that same experience, but be a lot lighter or be a lot lower to the ground, which then makes you just feel more stable, more in control. It becomes a more responsive experience. So that was my personal testing criteria was, can I just enjoy it from like a recreational sense? Am I having fun without feeling like something is off, without feeling like it's not responding the way I want, or I'm just dogging it, just getting down, making it to the end of my block. Does the ride feel good? So
yeah. So were there some things that you guys changed like during this process? Was there some, because I know, we talked about the Swan frame, I think quite a few episodes back, and tweaking that rocker to be perfect, or tweaking the spacing to be right. Was there some feedback there, or was it kind of all good? Let's move on here. I mean, obviously you've been designing quite a few frames, Brad, so lots of experience there.
Yeah, so we actually made we all skated two different prototypes. We skated, whether we want to call it frame A and frame, I call it the stiff frame and the comfy frame is how I refer to them. And so, here's the comfy frame and here's the stiff frame, and we can get into what was what. But what I think was interesting about our development process here was I feel like, so I made some assumptions with the design. I wanted to try and push things to go as light as I could. So to answer your question, yeah, there were some tweaks that we made. There was okay, the first version, I feel like it was really in the zone for all of us. And there was just some really subtle tweaks that we wanted to make. But I think we were all feeling, because it felt so damn good, we were all kind of like, did we miss something? Like, is this the experience we want people to have? We needed a sanity check. And that's when we made the second frame. So we decided like, hey, let's create a different 4x100 experience and then have a reference point to figure out, do we like responsive and stiff, or do we like comfy? And so I'll just take a vote here. So this was the stiff one, and this was the comfy one. Who here preferred the comfy one over the stiff one? Who here likes the stiff one the most?
Yeah.
Yeah, everybody.
What's on the
I'm not gonna lie, I
Unanimous
still
vote.
have the comfy version on me, but I do prefer the stiff one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
But there was a reason the reason you're calling it comfy, what were some of our reactions to the first one? Was like, oh wow, this is full energy transfer, like down to the frame with a little more than we were expecting coming back from the frame. Would you agree? Hence the comfy version.
Yeah, I definitely would. I was the one that skated the frame first. So I had the very first initial impression, and I can't remember, maybe when you guys recall what I texted you or sent you in a video message, but I believe within the first 10 seconds of going out my door and down my driveway was, oh, fuck yeah. Like this thing is moving. Like it just felt like a rocket. Like you said,
Nailed it.
Just 100% what you put in. Technically it's not 100%, but it just felt like I was getting so much more out of it than I was from any other frame. And, we can go into that later, and, we're on another episode about structurally why that is. But yeah, for me, I just noticed the speed. I noticed how light it was, how just like, I just felt like my limbs were free to do their thing. And then, the rocker felt, okay, so let's just give some specs for people. It's a 303 millimeter wheelbase, which is the same as all my other Endless 100 frames. It's got the same amount of rocker, so it's the same balanced rocker experience. So if you have an Endless 100 Trinity or Endless 100 or 100 RB 165 frame, it feels identical to that in terms of the rocker. But where it doesn't feel the same is in the power transfer, the immediate. I know Andrew has some good thoughts on this. I want to talk about the feedback you get from the frame. I just feel like you can feel the road in a way that you can't necessarily feel with not even my other endless frames, but just any other frames I've ever skated my entire life. So maybe you guys can share your experience from your initial impression skating the stiff frame. Andrew, go ahead.
Yeah, go for it, Andrew.
I'm thinking. I mean, I echo those comments. I think it's very helpful to talk in terms of comparisons, though. So compared to like the comfy one, there was something that I was missing when I was skating the comfy one. And we can. There's a clip that I know that we want to talk about later that I'll get into more of the specifics. But there was, there's in a lot of sports or other activities, there is this notion of sort of instantaneous feedback that as you're in the process of performing something, there's something that you're getting from what's in this case underfoot that changes how you're executing the move as you're doing it. And that was something that I recognized sort of doing like A/B testing essentially, where I was on the stiff frame versus either an existing, frame out on the market or the comfy frame, and noticing that wasn't there, that I wasn't getting the same feedback.
Yeah.
So we can talk about
It's a control loop, right? So it's like the thermostat in your house. Like, you turn up the heat and then the heat comes out of the vents, and then 5 minutes later the thermostat realizes that the temperature has gone up and it turns off the heat, right? But in terms of the frame, it's like you tell like Billy was saying, you tell the frame to do something, and if there's like a lag in that control loop, it's like you've kind of overshot or undershot, with your input. And so like when I feel like when you have that like really instantaneous feedback, it's like you're making micro adjustments in real time, as opposed to being like, oh, that didn't go the way I thought it would go, which is kind of what Billy was explaining earlier.
And I guess I hadn't said this specifically and I hadn't thought about it really, but the fact that I could feel it, the feedback is separate from the response, but you need that response to be instantaneous to take advantage of it. And you could with this, which was really nice.
Yeah.
I think the alternative there is if you aren't getting that feedback and it isn't worth a kind of activating your foot and ankle muscles like completely so that you can tell it what to do at every second or every microsecond, then instead you develop a style of just kind of hucking the equipment into the next position that it needs to be in. And I think
doing the fling,
just like I'm just going to flop the ankle and it's going to just go to the other edge and it's going to be fine, as opposed to modulating that entire movement. And I mean, obviously maybe being a little bit esoteric there, but like the ability to feel the edge changing and like gripping the next one, and like, okay, I set it down there instead of huck and pray is like one of the terms from mountain biking. You just huck and pray. And this is different than that a little bit, but to some extent on frames that might have a little more movement in them, you kind of have to just trust that it's going to hook up when it gets to that other position. And you don't try to modulate in the middle there. You just kind of go for it. I don't know. That kind of dawned on me. The other analogy or visual I'm going to put out there is imagine skating a 2x4. Would you rather skate the 2x4 on its like edge this way and it's going to have that yaw, or this way and standing on a widthways 2x4? That's not going to go anywhere. What if it's fully under? So like that imagining that box versus this long strip of metal almost like. So that's one of the feelings I had when I first got on it, was like, oh, I'm standing on a platform that is not going to deflect.
It's not a wet noodle.
Yeah.
No.
Well, I mean, obviously the other ones are still made of metal, but I use wet noodle when I refer to like a vintage French road bike or something where you go around a turn, it snaps back into place. To a lesser degree, that happens on
and you
thinner frame or something like that.
Yeah, you bring up such a good point too, Billy, about we work in a sport right, where our surfaces are constantly changing, right? Wayne's mentioned this urban kind of navigation. That pavement's always different, right? And so that feedback you get, from that specific type of pavement, from that specific crack or whatever it is. And then also your wheel wear too, right, is always a little bit different. You've got a slightly different rocker. And so hucking it, sometimes is the result of, giving a sacrifice to the blade gods or not. And having that responsiveness is critical.
And the huck probably also has some amount of like lift of the wheels off the ground, just for safety, versus like, man, if you really feel the whole thing gripping and sliding and snapping into the next position, it's fantastic.
So nice.
And you can hear it too. You kind of start to like appreciate that control that you can get out of it. So anyway, the visuals hopefully help people understand what I'm trying to talk about.
Yeah.
That analogy.
Did anybody else want to say anything about the stiff versus comfy frame?
Well, I would just add, I mean, so we're talking about responsiveness here, and maybe this is slightly different from what you're saying, Billy, about the huckingness, but there's also just the objective precision that comes with a stiffer frame, right? And so it's sometimes when we're like doing lions, or I'm thinking about like a lioness specifically, and we have these very, very swift edge transitions. The difference between getting that trick right and not getting it at all is like really a difference of few millimeters, right, of our wheels landing on the right edge, right, inside to outside to inside or something like that, right? And so when you have a frame that ends up buckling under your boots as you're doing that trick, it means that you're not going to be able to achieve that edge transition in a way that you intended to. So I think it's sort of in the same ilk, but I mean, with the V1, with the stiffer, frame A, I could feel like the solidness and the frame just following exactly, what my boots exactly. Whereas with the V2, I could feel it buckle a little more. I think maybe less pronounced than some of the other testers here, because maybe weight, maybe height, maybe with the amount of force that we're putting in. But I could still feel that difference that I know translates to less performance in the comfy version versus the stiff version.
Yeah, no, I mean, I definitely felt, I think when I first skated the comfy version, and when we say, we should clarify, when we say comfy, it's not like this is significantly less stiff than the other one, but it is, there are some structural features missing from this that give it a little more compliance. And so it has a little more, it's just a little less instantaneous on that feedback. But this is a very enjoyable, like if we had just made this, I think we all would have really enjoyed it and would have been like, yep, it's great. But the fact that we had made something that really exceeded our expectations, and then we made this, it kind of anchored where we were. It kind of gave us a reference point, like, oh, okay, we're this much more responsive and this much stiffer than this is the baseline. For me, I noticed. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say it reaffirmed those design criteria too. That was really what we were after.
Yeah. That's kind of like, I remember asking you guys, like, what is the experience we're trying to give people here? Like, who are we really designing for? And I think we all agreed that, we wanted this frame to just be like a total ripper, like super high performance Ferrari. Like, we're not making the Escalade. We're making, performance tuned sports car.
Yeah.
And everything has trade-offs, but I think we chose some good trade-offs. I was going to say, when I first skated this version, I instantly was like, okay, it feels good, it feels familiar, but I knew right away, like, I just wasn't covering as much ground for every stride. And I should have uploaded this data to share it, but I have an Apple Watch and I track my workouts on the watch. And so I did an outdoor skating workout. So I did 2 back-to-back runs. I did one on the stiff frame and one on the comfy frame. And I think I sent you guys all this data because I get heart rate, obviously the distance, the time, the range, kind of the range of the heart rate and calories burned. And it was like, I was I was like a reasonable amount faster on the stiff frame, and I think I burned less calories, I think is what it was. And
Yeah.
Billy, I think you tried to do a similar test.
Yeah, I did like back to back to back. I think with even another frame in the mix, but I made sure to do the stiff frame like multiple times. And I chose really pretty dreadful asphalt to do it on, just to see, yeah, like I guess a range. Like some of it was smooth and some of it was rough, just to see if if that would make an impact. Like, oh, maybe I'd push through the rougher stuff more efficiently with the comfy frame.
Right.
And it turned out that wasn't it. Like I just glided further from every stride on the stiffer frame. Is what it felt like. Like, it was the same wheels and bearings, right? Just the frame being different. So it's not like, if I was just standing at the top of the hill and seeing how far I roll down it, I would probably roll the same distance. But because when you stride, you're doing lateral motion, and you're, in theory, the frame can deflect to some extent. Like that's where the difference, I guess, would lie. I was really trying to keep my heart rate exactly the same, like trying to put out the same amount of effort, and I just didn't go as fast. So I was trying to hold one thing constant, which was like, don't try any harder on either of them. Just try the same amount. And then just like feeling like frustrated. Yeah, I think the wind picked up at one point. So I was like, all right, I got to run the experiment again. Like conditions were not.
So because you held your heart rate the same, which kind of means your input, the energy that you're expending was held constant, you ended up getting a faster lap time.
Yeah. It was definitely like more time to go the same distance on the comfy frames. And I was like, well, okay, like.
There you go.
Yeah,
that's it.
Yeah, and that was the exact same thing I got too. It just was like, for every stride I went a little bit further, and so I think I ended up taking less strides to do that same. I did like a 3/4 of a mile loop. In my neighborhood.
Also, like it should feel really good to stride. Also, like getting like science and numbers and everything, but when you push a frame and it just brings a smile to your face, like you said, Andrew, you're like, oh shit, like I could have been going this fast the whole time. And just having like constant control over it too is how it feels when you're not just like throwing your legs, again, like not hucking a trick but necessarily, but like hucking a stride, right? You're like, you can just, it's more like of an active motion instead of this kind of like bounce and throw. It's I don't know if that makes sense to folks, and maybe when they get to skate the frame, they'll be like, "Oh, I remember Billy said it's such a constant feedback, and like the feeling is like an active muscle kind of like feeling."
We got some video evidence, right? Don't we have some?
We're going to share some video. Yeah.
Okay,
so I wanted to just add that I repeated that same test, measuring my, getting the vital data from my body while I was doing this 3/4 mile loop. I did it just yesterday, didn't I? I compared the stiff frame versus a very popular but rather massive and heavy trapezoidal frame. And so I have long COVID, and so my body's ability to recover, for my heart rate to recover to baseline, is not as good as it used to be. So I decided to give the benefit of the doubt to the heavier frame that I thought was going to tax my body. And I skated that one first. And I just instantly felt like I was dogging it. Like my quads were burning at the end of the block. And I just was, having skated these prototypes for like the last few months, I had forgotten what it felt like to skate a frame that heavy. And when I switched, so, I obviously recorded my lap time and, the heart rate data. It took me about 20 minutes to change the frames. I put on, this frame. This was the setup that I skated, and repeated the same thing. My heart rate, I started at a baseline level that was like 20 beats per minute higher. So I was like already fatigued, and I still bested the lap time on these. And it just felt, again, just right, that first block this felt just effortless. And I think I said to you guys, because I recorded like little video reactions, I just felt like I was floating. And so it just reinforced in my head. I was like, oh yeah, this is the experience that I want every time I skate. Andrew, do we want to maybe put up a couple of relevant questions before we go into some of these videos?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think we've actually been kind of talking through quite a few of them. Somebody here has an interesting point. Jonah's talking about 4x100 better for distance or trail skating.
As opposed to,
I would ask as opposed to what, but in general, yes. I don't know. What do you guys think about 4x100? As you know, I think Wayne, you've already kind of alluded to this in your kind of urban cruising statement. But anybody has experience with 4x100 on trails, that kind of thing?
Yeah. So I skate with a group here in DC, and I have since December 2020 or so, and most of the skates are something between like 15 and 20 miles on a Sunday morning.
Wow.
Covering a lot of different types of trails.
Yeah, that's far.
That's a long haul. That sounds fun. I would love to do it at some point.
I welcome everyone, if you're in town, we are Skate DC on Instagram. That's a shout out to them.
Yeah.
They do great, Sunday morning skates throughout DC. A lot on the roads, but sometimes on trails. There's the I'm blanking on names, but there's a bunch of trails, along the river and everything that are a lot of fun to do. And 4x100 is how I did most of those. That or the arc, because those are the two things that I love skating.
Nice.
They feel good for that kind of a thing.
Mm-hmm.
So absolutely. And the beauty of it, to Wayne's point, is that when I'm done on the trail and I'm at, say, Freedom Plaza on some flatland, I can go do something else completely different. I can bust out some moves. It's all available to you on 4x100, and that's what makes it such a magical choice.
Yeah, I think really versatile for sure. Brad, this one's for you. Is there a scoop in the Ultra naming series with the new Ultra 80, or is it all?
Yeah, let me grab it. Let me grab it.
Because I think we do have the 80 Ultra, right? And this is now the 100 Ultra. So what's Ultra mean?
Okay, yeah. So Ultra represents kind of like the pinnacle of our engineering. Like it's the highest performance. It's going to be the most responsive, the best power transfer, like the most instantaneous feedback. It's all the things that we were talking about. And so I had been developing this for a long time, and some of these guys knew about this frame. And some of them just found out recently when we launched it. But throughout our testing, initially, I thought we were just going to call it Endless 100 UFS because we don't make a 4x100 UFS frame. But then I realized, no, it really needs to be an Ultra frame because of the tech that we're putting into it and kind of the performance that it's giving us. It really is the ultimate performance. And so you might recognize some similar design elements between these two.
Pretty similar.
And so, so in general, it's just the ultimate performance, stiff, super responsive, fast. There's
no rocker axles and there's no third or three-wheel option. Right. Because there's
single
trade-offs with three-wheel options.
Yeah, we didn't even mention that, but this frame is just designed to do one thing, which is be a 4x100 frame and be the most awesome 4x100 frame that has ever existed on UFS.
Yeah. And so, there's still value to, I think, the other Endless frames and the fact they do have that multi setup. But if you're going to skate 4x100 and that's all you're going to skate, hey, I mean, this has it all.
Yeah.
Well, question for you, Brad, with the 80 Ultra that you had in your hand is a 165, and then there's the 100 Ultra, which is UFS. Do you see a 165 100 Ultra? Is there a world where that makes sense too? Or other wheel sizes of 165 Ultra tech, basically, having
there could be, there could be. I've got some other stuff queued up in the pipeline, but these are if people are if they get to experience the Endless 100 Ultra UFS frame, and they want to see that for other formats, and maybe those will be designs we do in the future.
Cool. Yeah, I was just kind of curious because going from 165 with the
Yeah.
nomenclature to a UFS with the same nomenclature, like, is there be that
Yeah.
a Trinity
Yeah.
Ultra? Like, where's the limit? You know, like, there's
Yeah,
no limit, so.
we've gotten that question, and so it's like, but I should also point out that these ultra frames are not for every skater. Like, not every skater needs the Ferrari. Like, some of you are going to find more enjoyment from
the comfy version of the frame, right, so to speak.
Right?
Yeah.
It's not a lesser frame. It's just a slightly different experience. So, and
Andrew,
so
your team got a shout out here. We are Skate DC.
Yeah. Nice.
Did we jump into some of these videos, and you guys can like, and then we can kind of talk in real time, like see how this frame, because we've just been talking subjectively about what this does. Let's show people what this thing does. So, do we want to start with Billy's clips? I've got Billy. Maybe you can tell me the name if you remember the name of these. I've got Flatland Practice 66 Dojo Doodles.
Yeah, that's a good one. That one was fun.
Okay.
Love the naming scheme.
It definitely starts out a little slow, so feel free to skip it in to where I'm
all right.
Really shredding.
All right, maybe.
No, I just started out just kind of dancing around and stuff like that. But yeah, you can skip it in a little while. But I think because it's like 4 minutes or something. Yeah, just go or something.
Is this your first run on it?
No, this is my most recent actually.
Okay.
Or one of the more recent ones. I think sorry, it's kind of loud. You might want to turn the volume down too.
Oh, I don't have the volume up on mine, but I'll turn it there.
Okay,
perfect. Yeah,
I can turn it all the way off. We don't need the volume.
No, sure. Yeah, I mean, it's just to be car sounds, but like for me, the moments that really stand out on this frame are like hard, abrupt carves. So that could be like a toe pivot type deal where you're doing like a toe down and the other foot is carving around and is like bearing a lot of the load. The ability for the frame to just like hold a line and come around really tightly is kind of what I really noticed and was exploring in this session. I was also playing with like, just trying to do lions later. But anyway, yeah.
Deep edges too. I see, Billy, because of that 100. I think I see quite steep angles on some of your edges here.
That was what I was kind of going for. I was just playing with a couple of concepts and just seeing how long I could hold an outside edge before I had to do a lion, if that makes sense. And the fact that I could just kind of like hang out there and just have it keep going. That was a particularly nice spin and butt wiggle. But the spin, what I really noticed is like it just held the whole time. I was like, normally I'll like kind of like spin and like slip out or fall or something like that. It just wasn't happening. So yeah, anyway.
Is there anything, is it just more of this? You want me to go to the next one?
Oh, it's definitely just more of this. So yeah.
Okay. Let me go to
more of this killer skating. I mean,
really vibing to the music there. Like I said, if we,
let me go to the next one.
Might
So
have
I've got
put together a better
long
highlight
heel
reel.
toe line, and I've got toe press 180. I forget which one is.
Oh,
That
those
sounds
are
like
some of my
Andrew's.
clips. Yeah.
Okay.
Let's watch some toe
Oh.
presses.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
Okay.
Oh, the
So-
spot.
Yeah. So this awkward run up, I left in this clip on purpose. I'm pretty obsessive about that, but I'll talk about that in just a sec. So this is what I was doing. Nice. Oh, That was thanks. clean. So front
You want me to do that again?
close. What was it? No, it was a front open 180 on the left foot, then the front close 720-ish kind of thing. There's some mashing of this swivel towards the end probably, but the reason I left that awkward sort of run up to it is like it's hard to tell from this perspective, but there's the waterfront there, and then there's those three like things to keep cars from going into said waterfront. There's not a lot of room there, and so I had to come from like a dead stop, and unless you do that sequence of moves that I did
you have to do it pretty well to not just like totally dump the speed. And I needed a lot of speed at the end to do the toe heel fancy business at the end. And I also needed to do it tight enough that I didn't immediately run into those rocks at the end. So
You
I
did
wanted to
cover a
show
lot
this
of
one.
ground in that. Like
Yeah.
truly. Yeah.
It's just like a couple of strides, you know, it looked a little awkward again because I just didn't have a lot of space to do it, but I was able to get up to speed pretty quickly and hold it, you know, through what is something that for me usually dumps a fair bit of speed. So I think that speaks to the amount of speed I was able to generate in a short space, and you know, which is owed to the frames, and then also being able to preserve that speed as I'm trying to do these, like a lot of turns basically. So that's why I wanted to show that one.
Andrew, I've got this frame comparison clip queued up where you've got the side by side. Do you want to talk through that one?
Oh yeah, sure. Yeah. So this was, this is going to be, it's a little awkward, but it's the same move on two different frames. And the timing, I tried to line up the initiation and then like the point where I go into like that heel press, like the two of them.
Maybe we should tell people which one the Endless 100 Ultra is.
Oh, which one do you think it is, guys? No. It's the bottom of the two. And you can, what comes out in this is that you can see that I'm through parts of the move faster on it than the other. So the competitor frames in the top half of this, and I, you know, it didn't feel any different to me at the time, but looking at it, what it was, and I could tell, and I can remember the feeling now. Or rather, I shouldn't say it didn't feel different at the time. I wasn't aware of it at the time. There's a hesitation. So what's actually happening here? Why are they desynchronizing partway through there? It's because after that first 180, I'm a little uncertain if I'm going to be able to get the rest of the move in the top of the frame. And there is no hesitation in the bottom. I just go for it.
I can see it in the top one. You kind of hang out on that fakie. The first, after the first 180, you're like, okay, we're going to crank just a single 360 after this.
Yep.
And the bottom one, each 180 is punctuated like very clearly. Boom, boom, boom. Like,
yeah.
And on the top one,
Snappy.
it's like one lion and then a bit of delay and then more of like a 360. I mean, it's still punctuated, but it's like more of a,
you know what I had
thing. Yeah.
Oh, sorry to interrupt.
No, that's
what I had noticed, and I had mentioned this to Andrew when I first saw this, was look at his body alignment from his shoulders to his hips to his ankles. He's much more like everything's in like along an axis on the bottom one, where he's kind of like part of his body is a little off kilter, a part like in the midway through the move on the top. Do you see that? Like his hip is like out of alignment and he's kind of like chucking his leg around.
Yeah. Yeah. So the thing that occurred to me after this session, or maybe it was like partway through, I texted you guys about this, is that the frame up top, there were things that I was missing in terms of the feedback that I could feel so obviously I didn't just like do trick one, change out the frames, do trick two. Like, no, this takes a couple of tries. Although I will say to my credit that on the bottom one, it didn't take me that long. But anyway, like there was a difference I could feel in the feedback when I screwed up on the endless frame. I could tell. I'm like, oh, wait a minute. I'm like way over my toes right now, like in terms of like the weight. So in particular, like after that first line, as I'm going into the second, the third bit, if I'm not on like a good axis, like if I'm starting to tilt, the move's not going to work. And I could feel if that was happening on the endless frame, and I realized that I was not getting that. Yep, I knew it sooner. That's really the right way to put it.
Yeah, that's that. Because you were talking about the feedback loop, and like the sooner you know something is bad is going to happen, you can either bail out or commit to it. Yep. But yeah, if you're already in it, you're kind of like, okay, gonna fall.
Yep.
So there's safer frames too, right?
That's very important to me. Like I said this the other day. Like I don't fall very much at all. But that comes from like I'm a very safe skater in that way. I don't push it, and so yeah, this actually does make a difference for that too. I hadn't thought about that, but yeah, it does.
Yeah, I fall a fair amount. So the sooner I know I'm gonna fall, the better, because I can like make it a gentler version of that.
All right, I've got this. You guys can tell me toe press 180.
that's another one of mine. Let's. You want to move on to?
Oh yeah.
Toe pivot on over to Wayne.
We got some Wayne.
I
Yeah,
got anything, Toe.
No, I've got some of
Toe.
yours.
Okay.
I sent you
got,
another one too, Brad. I didn't realize we are going for like heater clips here, so
Yeah.
Yeah.
gave you the artistic
I don't know
exploration
about
clip. Wayne, you got some heaters though?
Wayne's
I
got a
don't
good
know
one.
about that.
This is from.
I think so.
This is from Instagram. Let's just see if this
Does that work?
works.
It works pretty damn good.
Oh yeah, this one.
Yeah, this is a fun one.
Is it going to play?
Here's the juice.
It was.
Let me restart it.
There we go. Oh, the stop.
Love that slide.
Shifty.
Yeah, that was so good.
Worse than a shift.
Replay. Give me the replay.
I don't know why it's not replaying.
Yeah.
I don't know. You're
It's
not
stuck.
logged in.
Anyway, let me go to another one.
Okay, Wayne, I'm curious that the like lion fake out shifty at the very end there,
Mm-hmm.
where it's like you kind of like fake the back close lion and then pull it back over.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Does that feel easier on this frame to you too? Because I feel like I can just be like, no, I want to go back the other way, and it's just like, cool, let's do that. I noticed my friend doing this when he skated it as well. He just
I feel like my success rate is still, it's a work in progress for sure.
Okay.
Like,
okay.
and I think it has less to do with the frame and more to do with my body positioning to just be able to revert back.
Gotcha.
This video is interesting because I think it sort of shows the acceleration that is needed to kind of build up the speed, and you can kind of see my speed build up. But once I get going, right, I'm getting carried away. To here, and then I'm kind of building speed here, pushing. Now, once I get onto this ramp, I'm just flowing.
Right.
And I think it kind of speaks to, I think this is a good video that kind of speaks to the way that the 4x100 frames, like they're both slow and fast at the same time. I don't know if that at all resonates at all. Like there's got flow to it. You definitely have to push a little more. And you can't do as like kind of quick, swivelly, like nimble moves, but like there's just like this inertia or momentum that kind of carries you forward that just feels incredibly nice when you're doing it.
That's very well said. Yeah.
I like
It had another one from you, Wayne, but it didn't. It seems to have not synced. But I do have. Let me just see if I had one more. I think it was the one where you had done down the little curved ramp.
Right. I don't know.
That's okay.
Not my best skating. Yeah.
Yeah. Billy, we got the one with the hundreds where your friend's skating the hundreds and you're skating 110s. You want to?
It's kind of fun to watch that.
Yeah.
That one.
Because that's somebody else. That's their first impression.
It's their first impression. And what was nice about this video was we were filming each other instead of just like a tripod skating. So nice. I was like zooming in pretty close. He's skating the carbon, the first version of the SX, the Lava Skates special here. That everyone was buying. So this is my friend Aaron, and he owns Beehive Skate Shop in Denver. And he is an awesome like ultra distance skater and wizard skater, but he mostly has been skating distance like custom boots and fancy massive frames. This in particular, I just really like watching. That was kind of the control of being able to twist it around one way and then put it the other way. The fact that he was doing that on brand new wheels was pretty amazing. So, and here's me tripping over a 110 frame. but yeah, his clips are pretty cool to watch. Especially, I think he has the last clip. It's like a triple S move that he does. That's pretty sweet. So you can go like almost to the end where it's.
Let me see if I can. Here's him some more. Oh, that's you. Here he is.
Aaron. And he was playing a lot with like, what does it feel like to do like an under push on these? And that's one where the edge slipped out on him, I think. Brand new wheels. This was a weirdly smooth surface that made it kind of hard to skate, honestly. Like There wasn't much
Let's see.
feedback from it.
Too slippery?
What's that?
It was too slippery, or just
No, it wasn't slippery. It was like I was skating like worn-in wheels, like that were someone else's rocker, and I didn't really know how to. I don't know.
handle it.
Yeah, sometimes you
Well,
know
Bill-
how like asphalt is more predictable in a way, even though it's grittier, because it's just like it's got a little bit of float to it. Anyway,
I'm trying to find Billy. There was a clip. I don't know if you sent it in like our group chat or if it was on Instagram or in a story or something. Were you on the 100 UFS, the ultras, and there were these back closed gazelles that you were doing where you did like a heel pop out of it. I think I can't remember where it was,
Yeah, I remember.
they were just
yeah.
incredible. And I was trying to like dig it up, like show this.
If
one.
anybody, yeah,
I
if you find it
just
and text it
texted
to
you
me, I
one.
can. You did.
I texted you one, Brad. It's a trick I didn't know I could do. So I've been playing with doing a 360
recently,
on
yeah.
1 foot, like jumping off of 1 foot, and then I was like, oh, I could probably like land on 1 foot too. Then I realized if I'm jumping off 1 foot, why don't I do a lion or a series of 1-footed swivels, then jump on 1 foot, do a spin, land on 1 foot again, and I think what that's called is figure skating, but we don't really want to call it that. But I just texted it to you, Brad, and it's something
New
where
combo. Is this the one new combo unlocked?
yeah, with the horns.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I just didn't know that I could do this, and I think I needed to have a frame that was like exactly where
that carved
Yeah.
at the end, man.
Like,
Yes.
it was where I wanted it to be at every stage during the trick. It wasn't something I was guessing about, like, oh, is it going to be ready for me to do the spin at the end?
Mm-hmm.
And then also I did this like 15 times, didn't fall, but wanted to get that final kind of snap at the end.
Yeah.
Love that.
And yeah, like this frame slides like crazy too. I know a lot of people like don't do a lot of slides on flatland freestyle frames because wheels are expensive, but like it just
Yeah.
it slides so good. It's crazy. There's no
Really, wasn't-
when I skated the comfy frames and did some slides, I could actually see in the footage like a little bit of dancing
Chatter,
around,
yeah.
of like chatter or just like kind of a
Hesitation.
little wangle, a little wobble.
Yeah.
And these ones are just like so yeah. Anyway. Sorry, sounding
There
kind
was
of
a
throwy.
frame. There was a clip that you had sent in the text, I think, where you did a similar. There was like this really great acceleration, like midway. through
Oh
the trick.
yeah, I know what you're talking about. I'll find it.
Yeah. If
Oh.
maybe if you find it, you can text it and we can watch it. I think now would be a good time. So okay, I think that was all the clips I had. Now would be a great time. Okay, so we've been talking about things kind of subjectively. And kind of like our feelings about this stuff. We've kind of laid out like why we're making this, who it's for, what attributes we were trying to design into this frame, and kind of describing and showing like what the frame felt like. But Andrew and I are engineers. And so we try and bring some science to this fight. So Andrew put something together that he's going to walk us through. And some of you guys, this is going to be the first time you've seen this. And I think for some people that are watching this, this is probably the first time you're going to see a recreational skate company present data like this. So we'll try and, if you have questions, feel free to ask. Andrew's I'll make sure Andrew walks us through some of the terminology. But we did a little bit of an analysis here. So take it away.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, nothing to be too scared of here. Just wanted to try to, present some of this stuff more engineering like. So, Brad of course has CAD models of all these frames, CAD being, the 3D computer design that, we use to get things manufactured. So we chucked into this type of software that we call finite element analysis. All finite element is really like a simulation, right? It's a computer simulation that we can apply some loads and see how the frames actually deform. So this is the endless frame. This is actually the endless 100 ultra frame. I just wanted to, as a good scientist, give my study parameters here. So Brad and I basically took the frame here, which you can see is kind of the bottom section.
Andrew, can I just press pause for a sec?
Yeah, go ahead.
I think I know you don't like to toot your own horn, but I think you need to tell people what your background is and what you currently do for a living.
Yeah, that's fair. So I have a PhD in material science and engineering from Stanford, currently a professor at a East Coast university, kind of an R2 in mechanical engineering. So this is kind of my bread and butter. Brad threw this to me earlier this afternoon. We ran through and did the Sims.
Yeah.
An
I just
hour
want
or
people
so.
to know,
Yeah.
like, we're not pulling this out of our butts. Like,
This is my life's work. Okay, this is what I do besides skating on the side. I actually have degrees in this. And Brad does too, right? Not to toot his own horn, and all the other guys on this call are also very smart. And I think skating is not their full-time job, to my knowledge. They all do great stuff. So anyways,
explain your parameters and constraints here.
So just real fast, nobody, as Brad said, nobody's really does this stuff. So I want to just kind of tell everybody and help confirm to everybody that we did this as best we could. So we've got this top rigid plate that is basically simulating your boot. That thing is not moving. The frame is kind of bolted to that surface in a way, and then we've got our axles there in blue along the bottom. And what we've simulated here is 200-pound force. So this is essentially, a kind of, average, guy wearing a size 44 boot or a woman wearing a size 44 boot, putting all of their weight on one frame, kind of on an edge, right? So it's kind of
so it'd be kind of like. They're like doing this.
Exactly. They're basically standing on that edge there. And so we've put it on the inside of the frame and we've got some pretty, I think, convincing results. And I just want to let you guys know that when I show you this, what I'm showing you is exaggerated displacements. Okay. So what I mean by that is that I'm intentionally emphasizing how these things are moving, because the actual amount that it's moving is very, very small. Right. It's kind of less than 1 millimeter in most of these cases. So what's actually happening is on the left, and what I'm showing everybody is on the right-hand side. And hopefully I can convince you guys that the thing on the right-hand side is what you would expect to happen, right? If you put all your weight on one side of the frame, you're going to get your frame peeling off of your boot a little bit. You can see on the top right corner, and then your frame's going to bend and rack. And it's not only going to bend, on just one side, but because your axles, it's going to bend together, right? And so we get this, flexure, which is what we experience as skaters. And I want to emphasize here too, it's really hard to capture in simulation all the stuff that we've been talking about feeling. But I think me and Brad's kind of goal here is to, back up, some of these claims here. We can go out and say, it feels stiffer, it feels something like this, but to actually back up some of that stuff with real data that we would do as engineers. So I'm showing you the thing on the right. So here's the endless 100 UFS, and this is what it actually looks like in kind of an isometric view with displacements. And so the red here is basically it's displacing more, and the green is slightly less, and the blue is basically not displacing at all. So you can see the top frame there is basically not deflecting whatsoever. And you can see in the middle part of the frame there, it's deflecting less than the ends. And that's due to all the kind of nice structural goodness that Brad's kind of put on the inside. And so, we can actually see how these things deflecting. But yeah, go ahead, Brad.
Yeah, I just want to maybe before we get too much further, just state that from a technical perspective, when we said earlier that our design goal was like stiffness and responsiveness. And so for me, like when I translate that into engineering and design, I'm trying to make the center of the frame as stiff as possible and deflect the least amount as possible. Primarily wheels 2 and 3 should be the things that are not moving because it's a rockered frame. That's where most of your, when you put down a stride, that's where most of your push is going, is the center wheels. And then when you're doing these moves like gazelles, lions, wheels 2 and 3 are your primary pivots. That's where most of the force is when you're executing these edge transitions and you're swiveling. So when you create a frame that deflects a minimal amount at wheels 2 and 3, you get this experience we've been talking about, which is instantaneous feedback, minimal lag, maximum responsiveness, just an overall solid feeling. So anyway, just wanted to kind of set the
Yeah,
stage here for what.
no, I think that's a great point. And so, like we've been talking about, these things in vacuum don't really tell us too much, but we wanted to compare to what we would kind of call the industry standard, the trapezoidal frame, as we've been referring to it. Drew's already, I think very clearly listed what this is. But so we did that comparison, right? And we took a trapezoidal frame. Brad did some back engineering, which is not too tricky to do. And this is, we're pretty confident in the kind of realistic simulation of some of our competitors' frames here.
Can I just add?
Yeah, go ahead.
Can I add a note about this?
Yeah.
So
yeah.
So I modeled this up. I took an actual specimen of the competitor frame, took some measurements with calipers, measured all the features, modeled them all in there, and then to make sure that it was accurate, I compared the weight that the CAD software was telling me of this part versus the actual specimen. And the weight of the frame in CAD came out to be what was it, Andrew? 330.4 grams. And I think, didn't you measure 330.8? It was something
400.
430. Yeah. 430.8 versus 430.4. So I think we can say that I've accurately modeled this frame and all its features.
We've done our verifications, but what you can see here is a relatively similar load path we'll say displacement distribution, and that's basically because we're putting the same amount of load on these two frames. If you squint super duper hard, these are in theory relatively similar things, right? In the sense that a skate frame is not super different, but the biggest thing here is that it's giving the same response. And I think, Andrew, you talked about this a lot. The weight difference here is massive, right? Brad is working with a significantly reduced amount of material here, and you're still getting an extremely stiff response in the endless.
Yeah, I'll just mention what that weight difference is, because somebody asked earlier.
Yep.
Our production frame weighs 362 grams versus the trapezoid 100, which weighs 430 grams. So it's a difference of 69 grams. And then if, I'm pretty sure our frame is going to come with our aluminum ultra axles, which in general are about 38 to 40 grams of weight savings over steel axles. So I don't know if this frame currently comes with aluminum or steel axles, but if you've got a trapezoidal frame with steel axles, then we're talking upwards of around 100 grams weight savings per skate.
Yeah, which is pretty significant. And one other thing we were interested in too, I don't know if I'm just going to say it because I think hopefully it's fine to say, there's a lot of talk about 6061 versus 7075 aluminum, right? A lot of the skate manufacturers, tout this as one of the, big things. I think there is a feel difference. Brad and I have had a little bit of experience playing around with this, but we decided to model it anyways. And the 7075 is a little bit stiffer. We can actually
3%.
It's about 3% stiffer. It is significantly harder, which is an interesting mechanical phenomena. I'm not going to get into the weeds of mechanical properties and materials here, and the difference between harder and stiffer and stronger and all these things. But we decided to model it, and there is a small difference. One of the other things we want to talk about here is also like the high displacement section. So what I'm showing now is basically just a cutaway of certain parts of the frame which are undergoing high displacement. So this is essentially the part of your frame that is bending the most. So we did this for endless frames. You can see all the sections that are colored here in green, yellow, and orange. These are the parts of the frame that are deflecting more than 100 micron, 0.1 millimeters. On the trapezoidal frame, on the kind of stand-in trapezoidal frame, you can see there's a much larger amount of the frame that's actually deflecting with that amount. And that's essentially, equivalating to kind of a little bit more bend, less stiffness, also in some ways wasted material, right? There's some sections here that maybe don't need to be there for weight savings, other things like that. We also did it in the 70-75. You can ever so slightly tell that the thickness of the 70-75 section is slightly smaller because it's slightly stiffer, but it's barely noticeable at all. And then kind of interesting here, just showing a front view comparison of these deflections. Again, you can see the frame kind of peeling away a little bit, but in general, the Endless 100 UFS frame, and again, these are hyper exaggerated. You really won't see this at all, but you can kind of feel it in a sense. And really, the takeaway here is that the Endless 100 UFS frame is really behaving quite similarly and is quite stiff with much less weight, which is pretty impressive. Again, this is our attempt at engineeringizing the skating feeling, but there's nothing I think that really we can simulate that equates to actually skating here. So I don't know. What do you guys think? This is the first time we're bringing some simulations and I guess getting hyper nerdy on the Endless show, but hopefully it shows just some of the experiences that you guys are having and some of the things going on there.
I wanted to highlight these two comparisons.
Yeah.
Like, so I was mentioning like having, my goal was to make the center of the frame, wheels 2 and 3, be really stiff and have minimal deflection, especially compared to other things that are on the market. And I think you can see that we achieved that. I mean, there's a lot more deflection happening in this section as opposed to here. What's also interesting to me and is that the rear wheel 4 deflects the most on this frame.
Yep.
But we get the most deflection in the front, and I think that's it has to do. So our frame is internally bridged, and I think that has to do with the dimensions of the bridge in the rear tends to be. I think I've got it. It's wider, or it's just there's a more substantial bridge in the rear of the frame than there is in the front of the frame. That just had to do with the geometry and getting clearance. Yeah.
Right. And so translates, I think, to a different stiffness, I think, in heel versus toe and this kind of thing, potentially.
So excellent work, Andrew. I think that looks really good.
This is a dream come true for me. I've been wanting to see something like this for a while.
Yeah. That's the one I wanted to look at because there's less green, but there's less material to be green at all. So it's really like, what color is it at the axle? Yeah. And in this one, it's pretty green.
Well, it also tells
yellow.
Yeah. But I think like if we go back to here, there's just a lot. There's just less deflection in between axles 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 than there is here.
Yeah, I'd have to point probe this, I think, and do some, really quantified statistics to make huge claims here. I think presenting this as kind of like a first round qualitative, just like sanity check is pretty valid. But yeah, I think we've opened up a can of worms. I think I'm going to start, nerding out.
Modeling.
You're gonna analyze all of our frames.
I'm going to analyze
professional services available to any frame maker that can be modeled. I'm going to request this colorway, though, if we could.
Can we get this, Brad?
The fade. It's like a little like the red, yellow, green in the front there. I don't know. I mean,
I think that's cool. Yeah. Map the stresses. I like it.
It's like a topographical almost.
Yeah.
But I feel like my takeaway from this, Andrew, let me just look at, I think I had sent you what my takeaway was earlier.
Yeah, but it's fun to see, right? Because I think the only other people that we've really see do this kind of work is the speed skating community, where they're hyper focused on strength to weight and lightness and stiffness and all these things. So to bring it to our little recreational space, I think is pretty exciting.
Yeah. I know I said that my criteria was initially like a vibe check, but having something quantitative to back this up really matters a lot to me. Like my background's in physics. Like I was a scientist for a long time, and like for there to be some sort of corroboration, essentially the things and not a priori, right? Like we skated these months ago. You did this today.
Yeah, right.
Like, and to see something that quantitatively validates things that we all felt like collectively is really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's like
Yeah,
a
I would say
complete lack of deflection from the mounting bolts down.
Oh yeah.
It's like
Yeah.
nothing's moving right there.
the base is very rigid.
Like all the way to the edges of the bottom of the frame.
Yeah.
Whereas this one, that blue color, that smallest deflection stops halfway down the frame.
Yeah.
That's really fascinating.
Yeah,
To me,
B-Water,
sorry,
this is
yeah.
Fusion 360. It's with ANSYS, same company that does ANSYS, which is one of the kind of standard FEM softwares in the field. Great question.
Yeah. So I would say if we were going to improve this analysis, we'd probably want to model the axles and the frame bolts more precisely. Like you just use some generic library type of thing.
Bolt connectors, exactly.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, yeah, I think if we want to get this perfect, I think there's a lot we can do. I'm super fascinated. I want to stick, whoever wants to volunteer, I'm going to stick force sensors in your frames because I want the actual loading conditions you guys are putting on these things, like on a line or something. Because I think it's way more than your actual weight, right? When you're going into that stop or you're, trying to change directions or pivot really hard, you have the full momentum of your body weight, going at, 5 miles an hour, maybe 10 miles an hour, something like that. I think you guys are actually putting a lot more load on your frames because Brad and I have seen this image on the right in an actual Instagram video before.
Oh yeah.
We've seen this.
It was a 5x9, wasn't it 5x100 or 5x90? What was that frame? 5x100?
I don't recall.
I think so.
Exactly.
Oh, like
the French guy.
The moment where you saw it.
Yeah, we've actually seen the frame like separating a little bit from the boot. And so this is the exaggerated case here. So I know that you guys are applying a lot more load on these frames than what I'm modeling here. So I'm really curious to get into this.
Andrew, question for you, clarification.
Yeah.
You wrote steel axles, but didn't we put these as aluminum 7075 for the axles?
No, the axles here were 1050. That's what we decided to use for this sim, but it doesn't make a huge difference.
What did you do for the frame mounting?
The frame mount is 17.4 pH for the rigid plate.
No, for the frame bolts.
I decided to use just a fixed surface on the top where the bolt is because I couldn't actually bolt two bodies together. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So this is
that's what I'm saying. Yeah, it's basically pinned there, but blocked by the rigid plate. I think like you said, in the future we could model the bolts, we could do all this, we could get better load cases. But as a first step to validate, I think some of the stuff we've been talking about today, not a bad pass.
Yeah, because we don't care about like local stresses, like right around like say the countersinks of the axles or like the UFS interface. We really were just trying to get like an overall picture of like.
Right.
Where is the frame deflecting?
Bending.
Where?
Right.
Yep.
Yeah. Where is it bending? Where are the hot spots in terms of stress? Didn't you have a stress plot? Did you?
Yeah, I think actually the stress here at the end.
There you go.
Yeah, another one here. So this is the kind of standard trapezoid frame here, looking at stresses. So before we were looking at how much the frame is moving. Now we're looking at how much kind of load the stress is under, how much that metal is like really feeling it. And you can see on this, standard trapezoidal frames, pay attention to those red regions there. And in general, on the endless frame, they tend to be a little bit smaller. And that's really just a qualitative observation. And that really just comes from the kind of, structural elements that Brad has added near the frame mounting position. Now, the axle stress concentrations, those are not quite valid just from the way that we've done the bolt connectors. But really in that top corner, you can see how it's distributing the stress near those mounting points a little bit more kind of universally along the line where the frame is making contact. So slightly smaller, high stress intensity regions, but again, something you'd have to do a little bit more quantification.
Yeah. It's interesting too to see the kind of the where the bridges are between wheels 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. Where
you can see the stress is lower.
Just a little blue dot in the middle.
Yeah, the little blue dot in the middle. That's actually very funny. I didn't notice that before. Yeah. You can see kind of a local cool spot. Yeah, versus this one, which has these weird blue spots in the middle there. I guess that's just the way that the load's applied. I don't quite understand that.
Probably just the way the load's flowing through it.
Yeah, but again, just emphasizing here, right? Like where you need the weight, where you don't, and I think some of the advantages of the frame.
Yeah.
Wow.
Did you define what stress is for people, Andrew?
Yeah, it's how much the metal's pulling or stretching, essentially. It's yeah, again, not to get into mechanics and materials, but it's basically just like the force that they're experiencing divided by a relative local area, and that's basically it. But when you see metal start to kind of turn white, that means, you know, more stress. Yeah, that's exactly right. TS, you're gonna get the stress colorway coming soon. Yeah, the thermal. Yeah, that's right. We'll get the predator
We should-
color.
we should, yeah,
So
we should
good.
like UV print like the stress map onto the frame. That would be awesome.
Yeah.
You put it in the sunlight. You know,
So Andrew, like, how did I do with my design here? How, as my analyst, how would you rate the design?
Yeah, I think it's really cool. I think overall did a better job, I think, definitely compared to what I've seen from the competitor analysis without, you know, any significant quantification. I would love to see, you know, how we can intelligently use this to, I think, really carve out even more weight potentially, you know, while still maintaining the aesthetics of the frame. Brad, now you and I have tossed around some very fascinating structural concepts in the past, and so some interesting thoughts there. And you know,
I think we could maybe, you know, use this type of analysis if we were to do a future like distance or marathon frame where we would
Mhm.
where we're prioritizing weight. I definitely think we could
Yeah.
use this to optimize.
The other space too that Fusion has is AI informed you know, generative design. So if we
Yeah.
give it these load paths and we're like, all right, AI, go, you know, build us the best structure, who knows what it'll come up with.
well, I was
It's
curious
almost
in
like
the
a
same
spider web.
direction. You know, Brad, seeing these, does it point out things that you would change? Like
Yeah.
the things that point out to me are the front and back corners. They're like,
Mm-hmm.
you know,
Yeah,
it's
so
the
let's go
same
back to
thickness
that.
all the way out to the end.
Mhm.
Does that make you think that it should be thicker there or something? I mean, I don't know. What
Well,
came to
just
mind?
knowing that in the okay, so Andrew, you brought up an interesting question. He was like, why is on this trapezoidal frame, why is the highest deflection occurring in the back
Mhm.
versus our highest deflection occurs in the front? And I
Mhm.
pointed out that we've got internal bridges, and actually, Andrew, which end is the front and which is the back?
The right side here is the front, I believe.
Are we sure about you pointed them the same way in both directions?
Now you're asking me. I don't know for sure, to be
Oh,
honest.
no, wait. No. You're right. The front, I can tell the front is on the right.
Okay. All right. You know these frames like nobody else.
Hold on. Let me just look at.
Is the
I do
axle
wanna kind of
position the
verify-
right direction?
Yeah.
The
Check your axles, guys.
Because for me, the head of the axle is on the right side of the frame, which would indicate that the front is the left side. But
Oh, okay. So maybe the front is the left.
well, if you go back to the trapezoid one, are the axles positioned the same way? And actually, I don't know if they are in there.
Yeah, and Andrew
Hold on.
has our potential
Oh,
reference.
because this one has the axles on the other side.
Oh, it's true. It's true.
So I don't know.
Well,
They
they
also
should
look
be on
like
the same. Did you flip it around?
I may have flipped it.
It must
You
be
flipped
flipped
it.
around.
Okay.
flipped it.
Okay.
Because if
so
the
both-
axles
so-
are supposed to be on the same side, then
Okay,
yeah.
okay.
Okay.
All right, so
Yep.
then this is right. So there
Okay.
so because I this perspective was confusing, so I flipped it in this picture where the axles are on the same side.
Okay, good.
Axles
So
are
okay,
very-
so it's consistent between the two. The rear flexes. Let's go back to that other slide.
Okay.
All right, so the rear flex is the same on both. All right.
The rear flex is the same on both because the frame is tilted.
Yeah,
We
it's
have a
large.
longer
more-
cantilever.
More meat in the back, I guess.
There's
Like a
more
longer
distance from the
lever
mounting
arm.
bolt to the axle.
Mm.
Yeah,
right.
it's a longer
Yeah.
cantilever.
Okay.
So
okay.
that makes sense. Okay, good. Because I was like, that was weird.
What's going on?
What's happening?
Yeah, there's more. I mean, this wheel is right up against the boot here, and then this one has a much bigger gap for
Yeah.
the tilt, so it's just got more distance to cover.
There you go. Nice.
Okay,
We
good.
figured it out.
So now we're not totally
We're not
crazy, right?
crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What else was I going to say? I
But
forgot what my
if
train
you
of
guys
thought
want to
was.
see these, we'll put these up on the website probably, Brad.
Yeah, we can make a blog post at some point, and maybe if you flip the.
Yeah, Sacco, you're right. The axles and wheel cores would add to the stiffness. I agree. If we were perfect modelers, this is the problem.
Yeah.
This is the problem with modeling, right? To actually replicate your system in reality.
Yeah, but at least this
challenge.
is apples to apples. Like, there's the same
Yes.
constraints and load
Mhm.
cases between both models. But yeah, when you've got like the entire bearing spacer stack, contacting that entire wheel boss, it's going to change the deflection a little bit, but the
Mhm.
overall behavior trend should be the same.
The color
Um,
scale would be the same, but the legend would reflect smaller numbers probably.
Yes.
Something like
Yeah,
that.
Yeah.
I think so. Yeah. And this is the
Yeah.
thing with simulation too. And our material models, I think, would have to account for elastic plastic. Well, probably not elastic plastic. Anyways, I'm getting too nerdy. Before we go too crazy, I was just happy to bring this to you guys. I think we can probably turn it over maybe to some kind of questions if there's some stuff on Instagram, Brad, or in the chat, and kind of wrap up a couple of thoughts here. And
There is one more.
sweet show.
We did want to talk about one more thing, because I think we all agreed like this was a pretty great experience, like on this frame. And so the natural question was, well, what if we made this in 4x90? And we all thought we should frickin' do that. And we did.
All right, there we go.
Nice
There you
build
go.
up.
Yeah, good.
Surprise.
Nice.
So yeah,
Is this just
so
the normal 90?
it's just
Is
It's
it?
just
Is
a
there
regular
anything
90.
special?
so honey, I shrunk the endless 100. So yeah, it was we kind of busted this out because it was just like, it was such a great experience, and we just thought, yeah, people are going to want this in 90, but we did something a little different, and I want to bring this boot back again. This boot originally came with a frame. It was 4x90. I bought this in probably early 2000s. This might be the skate I've skated the most in my life. And it had a 4x90 frame, and the wheelbase was 285 millimeters. And I just remember this wheel. So this is a size 10, I think a 43 boot. And I just remember this being the most wonderful 4x90 experience with that 285 millimeter wheelbase.
Mhm.
So that's what we decided to make, because we thought, hey, this is a big wheel frame that's supposed to be optimized for high speed flows. And part of the magic of the 4x100 is that longer wheelbase and having the slightly, the bigger pivot spacing. And so our normal 4x90 frames, let me compare. Do I have?
What's the length on the
Yes.
typical 90?
276.
276.
276. I have,
Just one of
I
each.
swear I have a 4x90 floating around here.
Ooh,
Billy's
yeah,
got it up there.
Billy's got one there. Nice. Yeah, so just
Billy's
little
got
bit
one. There you
longer
go.
Yeah, Billy's
It's
got
Yeah,
a little
here we
hard to
go. I got-
visualize, but you
Mhm.
can
Yeah.
kind of see it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a little
This
easier
one-
with the axles up against each other.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So it's just a
Oh, that's
little bit longer, but the 2x85 just is like really ideal for people that are size 40 to 44. And I think, I think right now, like if you're on a UFS boot like the Seba CJ or the Seba SX, or like the new Wizard base or base high, it's like, if you've got a big foot, 276 feels a little too short, and the pivot spacing is a little too, how would you describe that, Billy? I describe it as unstable. It's a little too wily,
Swallow me.
swallow me.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's kind of like a 5-wheel frame in that it's
Yeah.
it has a very tight carve radius.
Mm-hmm.
But if you put, this obviously is not the right interface, but if it was, you can kind of get a sense, size 43.
Like that
This
looks
is like
right.
perfect. Yeah, this
that
looks
looks good.
right.
Yeah, these
So-
gaps are not from the wheels being worn at all. These are almost brand new wheels. So there's gaps there for other reasons.
So we've got, we'll just show a couple videos of the guys skating this because I mean, I think you'll see it when you see these.
We
all this stuff
we just made this person's day.
Yeah.
Wow.
No, this is Andrew. This is yours, and this is the one where I thought you were just skating like top of your game here.
The hot clip.
Like no big deal.
Second time out on these things.
And Andrew, what size is your boot?
It's a 40.
Oh, wow.
I'm like a 39 or a 40. If I got another like carbon UFS boot, it would be a 39, and I would suffer. This is a 40.
Yeah, this flow is
This is real nice.
Oh, thank you.
good.
It's so cool.
And you can do that on them because it's short.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's 10
Little
millimeters shorter in height, right? Or give or take, or well, 5, I guess, because
It's
well, no, it's just 10 overall.
it's
The axles are 5.
no it's going to be the radius plus the difference in height of the frame. So it was like, I forget what the number is, 8.
But
or something
overall,
like
your
that.
foot is going to be 10 millimeters lower to the ground.
Yeah, plus the difference in the
Like-
frame. So I think it's
yeah.
like 12 or 13 millimeters lower.
Oh, so it's
So-
even lower than it would be, or like, yeah, okay, that makes sense. But
Yeah,
the point is,
'cause
it's that much lower, but it's not that much shorter in length. So we're stretching it out a little bit.
Yeah, but it will be stiffer. So if we were to do the finite element analysis on the 90 Ultra, it's going to be stiffer just by virtue of the fact that it's a shorter frame, less of a cantilever. Otherwise, all the same features are in all the exact same places.
Be careful, Brad. It won't be. Stiffness is a very special term. Let's not make claims. We don't.
Yeah, okay.
It may deflect less.
Yeah, there we
Billy,
go. I'm good
Billy,
at that.
which
You
one?
sent a clip. I think it's 2 up in the text. It's the one shot in
Flatland
portrait.
Practice. Flatland Practice UFS 90, the one that starts out with the clouds.
Yeah, that one is shorter, so it will be easier to like, and it's daytime instead of nighttime. I'm pretty sure that was not just a cloud. Yeah, so I was like, on the 100s, obviously the distance you travel is greater. And so I was really trying to just play with like, okay, how does that change kind of the distance of each of the lions or gazelles or whatever. So yeah, it was all the same kind of feelings of a constant positive feedback loop with like the ability to affect it, I guess, more acutely. With the 100, you still have to kind of negotiate against what the frame wants to do. And this one, I could kind of boss it around a little bit more. But yeah. So I don't know. I find myself almost having like more energy or power than I'm expecting and having to do something with it. Right. Like I didn't almost fall over. I just like did a couple more swivels. So those kind of like, whoop, 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 those like really kind of lobed turns, I almost want to call them. Like those are what kind of stand out to me on this frame, or on both of them, really, because the clip I sent to you, Andrew, or to the group chat was just these highly articulated edge transitions that scare me, frankly, on some other frames. So yeah, just the ability to kind of, I don't know, put it where you want it and have it do things for you. So
What size is your boot, Billy?
44.
Okay.
Just barely.
I don't know if you can bring it up. I don't mean to put you on the spot, but in the text, Billy sent over the clip. It's a front closed, or sorry, front open to back closed, and it's still like one of the most impressive things that I've seen. I don't
Is
know
it
if you
the
can bring that up.
Instagram one or the other one?
The one before that.
Just the video?
Yeah.
All
I
right,
don't know if you
hold
can bring
on.
that up.
Oh, that was on the 90s, right? The widescreen one. I
Yeah.
think it's pretty cool.
Yeah, okay.
It was
Yeah.
surprising that happened. I was like, huh. Oh, I can
Let me see if
recover
I
and
can-
still do a whole nother trick.
You guys are
I
really
should be able
selling
to do this.
the UFS life. Fausto's jumping in. You're making me want one just for
Well,
this.
think about like on a 165 boot, the block, the aluminum block that your screw goes into is like 10 millimeters thick on the toe. Maybe not, like maybe 8 to 10 millimeters thick, until we get to like the FR Neo, where it's must just be a shallower block. The thickness of this actual boot isn't that thick. The bolts are only, what are they, like 10 mil bolts?
Something like
Right?
that.
Like
yeah.
they're not long. So the point being that there's the reason the bolts are small is because there's nowhere for them to go, because the whole stack.
Oh, that move right there.
Look at that.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Talk about that.
So okay, so this move is a move that people mostly do in a way that, okay, I'm just gonna be upfront. They cheat this move a lot. The back open lion. So this is a front open lion to back open lion. That's all it is. And that second one, most people will lift the toe or kind of hop it a little bit, myself included, of course. But there was something
Or
about
slide
this
it.
one where, yeah, I wish I could almost like slow it down. But after that first move, there's a very distinct second 3 turn that was incredibly satisfying. You almost see it like accelerate through, because I just kind of really trying to sit back on the outside edge and then pull it underneath me and force it back in front of me. So I was just the fact that there was that much kind of connection to the frame, and then I could know that, okay, I can trust that I can bring this underneath me and push it back out in front of me. So it is a little weird to analyze clips with a bunch of friends, but I feel definitely on the spot watching it. But it's okay. I watch myself skate all the time. So
I think there's another one that I want to pull up here.
Well,
yeah, this is deep.
Squid's
This is
impressed,
deep
really.
edges, I think.
oh, it's from one of the first sessions I did on the 100s, and it was just like I was just like having more room for tricks than I thought. Like I don't know if that
I
normally
get
you
that
do
feeling,
a couple tricks and you're like done. You know you're done with the trick because you're out of energy. Like the movement is done. You can't make more curves. But with this,
I think it's this one.
you can just kind of like keep adding.
Is it this one? Yeah, this one right here.
Yeah, there's a couple like basic things in here, but just that deep edge to being able to pull it over. I think it's this.
That. Yep.
Yeah.
Just that. And that's, I don't know what that is. It's just a very positive edge. I don't know, very positive edge contact, I guess. Is that what that is? Like a predictable. It's crazy.
I think that's what it is. I think it's just the frame is where you think it is, and then your foot is responding to that stable platform.
Yeah. If any of the wheels like deflect in the way that the visual showed, they're not going to be contacting the ground at the same time, right? Like they're going to be like shifting a little bit. So if they're all staying in the same place, yeah, you hold your edge.
Right. So anyway, teaser. That's a big teaser about the Endless 90 Ultra.
That's a reveal, Brent.
You didn't even know.
I didn't think you were going to reveal it.
A whole ass new frame.
The whole ass new frame nobody even knew about. Oh, and the good news is I think we should have Endless 100 Ultra in our hands sometime in January. And I suspect that 90 Ultra will also be done by the end of January.
Oh,
so
wow.
they're both in production. And so we're going to leave the colors. We'll let the colors be a surprise for people.
Yeah.
I got to have something left to surprise everybody with. But Mercury, it will happen. It will happen at some point, but not initially. I don't want to make everybody wait on Mercury frames. So they always take like forever to do. Let's get into some questions here. I've got the ones from Instagram, and then obviously we've got the ones in the chat, Andrew. So maybe we'll start with the ones in the chat while I'm pulling these up.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, like I said, I think we've covered actually most of them so far. A couple questions about how much lighter. I think we got that. You know, a couple people asking about colorways. So I think there's a lot of love for the bronze of the Swan frame. Titanium gray has been a standout hit too, Brad, and I think you've been doing a good job. Releasing
Somebody,
that, yeah.
I'm glad to see somebody wants some titanium gray ones. There might be some titanium gray ones coming.
Yeah. Some interesting questions from Warlock. What's up, Warlock? Plans to do 4x100 and 5x. That's an interesting combo, but
no,
yeah.
I'll just give the short answer why I'll never do this. It's because it's too many compromises. Like you can't have a 4-wheel frame cannot be optimized if it's also supposed to be a 5-wheel frame. And I think Billy, I think you have some experience skating a frame like that has multiple 4 and 5-wheel setups.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
They're just different shapes, like pretty drastically different shapes. So if you're in 5-wheel mode, you have frame hanging down. If you're in 4-wheel mode, you have frame sticking out. To kind of handle it. I mean, it can be done, right? It definitely, there are options out there for that. And actually, in the picture, avatar is a 4/5-wheel frame in a grinding setup. So obviously some experience with that.
Ben Tech here has the dividing question. If you had to pick just one, 90 or 100.
I was wondering how much comparison talk we were going to do.
I vote 100, but that's just me.
Same 100.
Wayne hasn't skated the 90s yet, but I'll be curious to know.
But I've had past 90s. I mean, hundreds. Gotta go hundreds.
Oh.
Go big or go home.
Andrew's the one with the small foot, so he's the one that technically should not be skating.
No, actually, Andrew have the same. I think we have similar feet size. I also wear a 40.
You do?
And how tall are you guys?
I'm like 5'8", maybe.
5'8", okay.
5'8".
Oh, okay. We're talking about foot size. That's like what's more intimate?
What's more intimate than foot size? 5'8", 5'9".
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
I'm 6 foot, so I definitely go for more base, longer base, which is why I like the stretched out 90.
Yeah.
And the stretched out 90 works for me because I've skated for years on 303, like a 4x100, which feels very at home. I love it. Jury's still out at this point. This is the first time I've skated 4x90 actually ever.
Whoa.
Just a couple sessions so far, and it's growing on me pretty quickly. So we'll see.
I have to
pretty magical.
I have to say that when I skated this for the first time, this was the most pleasing 4x90 experience I think I've ever had. And I think it's a combination of things. It's the boot, the way that boot and the liner fit me. I mean, I've always just loved that fit, but just the way it worked with this frame at this wheelbase, with this stiffness and responsiveness and speed, definitely my favorite 4x90 frame of all time, probably at this moment. But I still think I'd pick the 100 just because I like to go faster with less effort.
Yeah.
So, there's a good question. New wheel sizes. I would never personally do that because it's a huge investment to make new wheel tooling for, like, especially you'd have to do cores and wheel profile. And so that's quite an investment. And I would not want to have to invest all that money just to make one wheel for one frame. I think I don't think there's much to gain.
Yeah, it's tough to enter that space for sure. Squid's got a great question. Who is everyone's favorite skater? He clarified later on. I'm going to switch up his question a little bit because it's too hard to pick a favorite. What's one skater you'd recommend our viewers check out that you find inspiring in your skating? How about that?
Good one.
I'm going to say all you guys check out their handles. Right here. All right, but for you guys, you got to pick somebody not on the call today.
Sure.
If you could.
Mine is pretty easy. It's Junkie Park. It's at jkabath on Instagram.
Nice.
And he
Good
does
one.
some of the wizard videos and does Soul Skaters, SE like Souls, where Wayne is currently. Soul Skaters tutorials are really good.
Nice. Yeah, great
What
one.
about you, Wayne? Who's your favorite skater?
There's so many to choose from, right?
So hard.
No, but I just want to give a shout out to Odette, who I met in Amsterdam a couple of months ago. Is now riding with This Is Soul flow skate team. But some of her kind of like intricate step, toe, heel, raise moves are something else. They're completely new to me in any case. So that's been a really fun source of inspiration.
Nice.
Yeah, she's a great pick. I would say from like more like, I mean, I think a lot of like the people associated with Wizard we know, but Stuart Brady is incredible, of course. I would say among us mere mortals, Federico, who skated the arc frame with us, HE Plan on Instagram, is a favorite of mine. So
nice. No, love it, guys. Showing
and what Sako just said in the chat too.
Roller 66. I don't know his name.
Roller 66.
I don't know his name either, but
Yeah, he's so good. I've chatted with him a
incredible.
little bit. I should ask him his name.
I'm going to answer this easy one. No.
There you go.
That's a whole lot of frame to move around.
Yeah. No, I mean, in general, I don't have the ambition to make frames for like 5 people. I just, it doesn't, I would rather serve a much broader audience with my designs.
Real quick one for me. Check out the earlier part of the stream. This will be up on YouTube for the parameters. Send us an email if you have any more detailed questions. Happy to answer them. Patrick Jones says, how will this feel in the Them 909s? We really talked about, the Seba CJ, I think one of the favorite boots among the crowd here.
Yeah.
Any thoughts here on other UFS boots and how compatible or not these may be?
Totally doable.
Which on the hundreds or the 90s?
Both. 90s great, hundreds manageable. Like I was pleasantly surprised when I tested them out on the 909s and thought they would be wobbly, but had enough there to make it work.
Sweet.
With an intuition liner.
Yep.
Nice.
Okay. But not you would probably not recommend the stock liner.
Probably not. But yeah, Junkyu, is rolling on advanced frames on 909 and he's doing things that we can only dream of. So you can make it happen. It's you, not the boots.
That's right. Don't let your gear limit you.
The 909 felt significantly better than the FR UFRs. I mean, and I think that just applies to wizard skating in general, maybe with these heavier big wheel frames. But I had a decent time on with riding the hundreds on the 909s.
Does the UFR get like flex in the foot area because it's so open across the top?
I think it has to do with it felt like further from the ground. I just don't have any signs. Like
it's definitely tall.
It is taller.
It's definitely taller. Just you can't do some of those toe heel presses on those.
The Omni V1 would be a cool option too. It's the stiffer plastic of the standard Omni. Folks are successfully skating that on big wheels. Sorry, Brad, what were you gonna say?
Oh, I was just going to say about the UFR versus say the 909. On second thought, the 909 you have to ride with the sole plate, which is going to add some thickness. So it might actually be comparable in ride height, but because you generally skate
it still felt better. I don't know why.
Yeah.
The footbed too is like more curved in the FR, where it's like pretty flat base in not flat base. It's a raised heel, but like it's like straight across kind of.
Yeah.
I don't know. So they're ride height differentials. This is more of a swivel council Discord chat. I'm gonna burn through some of these questions that I got on Instagram earlier.
Yeah, go for it.
Someone asked, what kind of rocker will they have? I think we covered that. It's the standard endless 100 balance rocker. Someone asked, what's the core idea behind the design of this frame? Be the best 100 UFS frame or something else? Short answer is yes. This is meant to be definitively the best UFS frame on the market. And at the beginning of the episode, we defined what best meant to us. Faster, stiffer, more responsive, more efficient power transfer, all those good things.
I mean, if you're
How
gonna
much
do it,
he'll
why
raise-
not do it the best, you know?
Yeah, and as I mentioned earlier, like I just don't see a reason to put something out that's just more not the best. Like,
Yeah,
I don't know. That's just my own personal ethos. How much heel raise do they have as they are advertised for flat UFS boots? It has the same amount of tilt to the mounting interface as our arc frame. So if you're familiar with the endless arc, your foot will be in the same position with the same tilt. What colors are they going to come in? I'm going to leave that as until we release them. When is the release date? Is there going to be a pre-order queue? Don't have an exact release date, but I think we're going to have them end of January. And what do you think? Should we do a pre-order? I guess maybe I could do a pre-order where it's like an interest-only pre-order. So maybe we'll just collect emails and send people a notice when we get them. How much will it be? TBD, but probably on par with the arc frames. Are they just to be used on carbon fiber boots? I would say no, as we've been discussing.
definitely not.
What boots were tested? What boots do you that you don't recommend them to be used on? So we've tested primarily with the Seba CJ, Seba SX. I think that's the target boot. Wayne is
909's a
saying
good
UFR. Yeah, UFR is not as great as 909. I probably would not use it on any other aggressive boot. Tell me if you guys agree with this statement. If you've never seen somebody skating any other wizard frame on the boot, don't ever attempt to skate this frame on it. Is that a fair?
Skate the boots you have. See if it works. You know,
That's true.
I wouldn't go from
But
0 to 100, literally.
Yeah.
You know, I would try baby steps in between. Right. To your point, if you haven't seen anyone skate a 100 mil wheel on the boot you have, then yeah, like maybe think twice about it.
I mean,
or
it
go
also
for the
depends on
90
what
or
you're
something.
trying to do, right? If you're just
Yeah,
trying to have a
Cruiser.
commuter skate, then I don't think any of these plastic boots will be a horrible, horrible option. But if you're trying to do technical things, yeah, carbon is definitely the option you should go for. But short of that, yeah, I think there's some options that could work.
Yeah.
And I
And
think
the
that having
last-
the 90,
Go ahead.
oh sorry, just that having the 90 as an option available, you know, it's historically anyway, people have found that 4x90 UFS big wheel rockered frames tend to work well on a number of plastic boots. It's much more accepting in terms of like the cuff area. So having that as an option for people too, you know, if you have a boot that you like, that will be available to you.
Yeah. Someone I forget if we covered this earlier. Someone asked, besides mounting, what's the difference between these and the 165 version? These are lower ride height, stiffer, faster, higher performance.
They don't have
ultra.
a three-wheel setup.
They don't have a three-wheel setup. They are ultra. This is a good question. TSS, is balance rocker 100%? Does it equate to enhanced flat?
No.
Yeah, it's not. No, enhanced flat is basically like a flat setup that you've skated for 10 miles. So it feels flat on a center edge, but it feels a little more intuitive when you carve. Whereas balance rocker is, it's enough rocker where you know it's rocker. The skate is going to feel much more maneuverable than a flat setup.
Definitely. Well, I think that's most of them.
Yeah. Anybody else? Let's see.
Gone through a lot of really good questions. What about a two-tone black and white checkered frame? Only after the Predator style stress plastered frames. I'm taking that one first. We did do urban camo.
Yeah, there's urban
We did.
camo. There was what's that that other kind of camo that we talked about, the dazzle
Oh yeah.
dazzle
Oh, yeah,
camo.
yeah.
Dazzle camo.
It's like
yeah.
one with stripes and
No,
like this stuff,
yeah. Well, yeah.
but I don't
Should
know.
maybe might pursue that later.
Yeah, that's like use some electric tape and creativity. Try to make it.
Let's see.
I think that's
scanning them.
quite a few of them. Sweet.
Ah.
Would there ever be a reason to make Ultra for 165?
Yeah, we already have them. We made the
true.
80 Ultras.
Yep.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yes. But again, I want people to understand that not everybody needs the Ultra frame. Like
Mhm.
if you're just skating recreationally, you like to go hit the trails, go buy one of our Mark II frames. Go
Mhm.
buy an Endless 90 Mark II and put go put 3 by 110 millimeter wheels on it.
Yeah.
Like you will enjoy that so much more. Like if you just like to skate for fitness and hit the trails. But if you specifically are trying to do big wheel flow skating and do a bunch of technical tricks like you've been seeing in the videos we've been showing, then this is the frame you want.
Nice. For the ska aesthetic, love it. I guess we need more ska in the endless crew.
Yeah.
I hope you guys.
Fun.
Yeah, we're trying to be goofy. We got pink frames. We got neon wheels. We got pink frames. We got all kinds of good stuff coming your guys' way.
Oh, did I tell you guys I got green wheels coming?
We're doing it all.
Let's go.
Another reveal.
Yeah.
Another reveal on stream. I hope you guys have learned a little bit about the Endless 100 Ultra. I want to say thanks again to our awesome guests this month, Billy, Andrew, Wayne. Thanks so much for joining us. Check these guys out at their handles at Billy Arlu, at approximately Nline, at Woo Skates. Guys, before we sign off here, anything you guys want to plug or shout out before we sign off? Billy, you want to go ahead?
Nothing much. Just have some projects in the work, but nothing worth announcing or anything. There will be a swivel edit coming out soon. Swivel Council edit. But otherwise, if you are at all interested in like swivelly trick tips and tech talk and stuff like that, I'm also offering subscriptions on my Instagram and posting exclusive content there with super esoteric, nuanced wizard skating style trick tips. So check me out on Instagram for that.
Yeah, love it. Andrew?
If you can teach me how to do that back open lion,
That was sick.
take my money.
For the low price of $2.99 a month. Just all trick tips.
That's
for
a
that
steal.
trick
That's
the
a
whole
steal.
time.
until I get it.
It is. No, okay. Yeah. All right. It's
Awesome.
in the shoulders.
No, I nothing much. I'm eager to start working out these 4x90s, get some good clips, and see what we can do.
Yeah, sounds great. Wayne, what you got for us?
No announcements. Just gotta skate again. It's cold out here, but I'll try to get a session in while I'm in Korea. And I think we should all just circle back on the UFS 100 video idea at some point. Put together an edit or something with our respective frames. That'd be a fun project.
Yeah.
Yeah, it sounds great. I mean, even from the couple clips I saw, and it sounds like there was a ton more, in the tested group chat. So even just throwing some of those together and do the best of the best, that sounds great. Brad, anything you wanna send off here for the crowd?
No, I think that's it. I mean, it's been a great year for Endless. I think 2025 is shaping up to be going to be really exciting. We've got a bunch of fun stuff in the works, and we're going to obviously kick off the year with these new 100 Ultra and 90 Ultra UFS frames. So yeah, thanks for everyone's support over the last year, and here's to an even better 2025.
Absolutely. Yeah. With that, happy New Year, everybody. Thanks for an awesome year at Endless. Coming up on 5 years. You're right, Brad. That's insane.
That's awesome.
But episode
crazy.
14 of the Endless Blading Show. Signing off, guys. Thanks everybody for watching, and see you guys next time.
Thanks for having us.
Bye.